Well, my name is Oliver and I'm writing for a German website that is dedicated to films and shows. And we're doing lots of interviews with filmmakers. And it's great to have the opportunity to talk to you about your film. My first question is, could you tell us a bit about the background of the film? How did you come up with the idea for it?
A long time ago, I made a music video. This is probably 2008 or something like that, and it had young people rotting. There was some sort of like psychological effect that for some reason it just became like an epidemic of people rotting, and I was young and inexperienced, but there was something about the image of youth culture and like rotting skin that was stuck in my head for so long, and I couldn't let go of it, and I felt like I needed to utilize it more than a low budget music video. And just slowly things started naturally making the story for me. It was, I got interested in just the pharmaceutical industry, and I was interested in this like specific Oslo bohemian art environment, and suddenly I saw I had enough ingredients for a story, and that's kind of how it happened. Yeah.
Okay. And how long did you work on this story? Because it sounds like it took quite a lot of time.
Yeah, I actually started writing the script in 2017. Okay. And I feel like I think we applied for funding at the end of 2019. And then we got half of the funding like just as the pandemic hit. And then spent, the next year just trying to figure out are we able to shoot movies now? How are we going to do it? All the applications suddenly stopped. And for a moment, I thought it wasn't going to happen. And then at the start of 2021 is when we suddenly had all the funding in place. And so it's been a long journey.
Okay. Well, congratulations that you made it.
Yeah, thank you.
The story of the film starts at a point where the obsession of being seen, your character, escalates a lot. What is the reason for this change?
I think it's something that this character and probably most people just have built in naturally. And I think in our culture, there's so many pressures to deliver or even opportunities to deliver something that gets you that type of attention. I think for her, though, there's an incident early on in the movie where she happens to be at the center of an accident. And it's very messy and bloody, and she's helping this poor woman from bleeding to death. And, she then has her clothes all bloodied up and people look at her differently, and she suddenly gets to cosplay what it is to be a victim. And I think that triggers something. I think that she accidentally finds her greatest desire, which is to be seen as a victim. And that type of sympathy that can generate.
And do you think that this is something that we are all born with?
Yeah, I mean, we're social creatures, and status is something that has always been an important element of social environments. And that has been weaponized and corrupted against us, the same way that we have a natural desire for sugar, and the fast food industry just learned how to weaponize that against us. The same way with like our kind of natural craving for status in a social environment is something that's been weaponized against us with social media and the general kind of fame obsession.
Then another question, artists usually create something that they want to be seen or heard. and which is a bit like what your characters are doing as well. So my question is, do you need to have this, at least a tendency of narcissism to become an artist?
Well, yeah, there's a discussion about that in the beginning of the film where she says the talent coupled with narcissism is a good thing because that's what gets you ahead. And I think that, yeah, I think there's the notion of the ego death, like a Buddhist and a philosophical kind of idea of killing your own ego. And I think the ego death is a recipe for killing productivity. I think like you need motivation, you need an ego to motivate you to do better, to look at yourself in some sort of social structure or hierarchy where you're trying to gain some sort of status. And I think a lot of that could be healthy. I think it all depends on the kind of the protein at the center of it. Again, to use the food analogy, like, are you just propping up empty calories with your output? Then that's unhealthy. But I think mass communication and talking to a wide audience is not necessarily an evil or bad thing. So, maybe not narcissism, but just like some sense of a personal perspective and wanting to communicate that perspective. If it is coming from your specific ego, I think some of that is completely fine and healthy. I'm not just saying that because that's what I'm doing, or maybe it is. That we should strive for that. We shouldn't strive for narcissism. We shouldn't romanticize this, I think. But there's, I mean, just like a little drop of it might help a career.
Well, and it probably helps at least to get your art out to others.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like the Dunning-Kruger effect of the less talented you are, the more confidence you have. I don't know if you've seen this like graph where the more talented you are, like your confidence starts dropping. I guess there's some self-awareness that comes with talent. And so I think that is the case. You have a lot of talented people are crippled with self-doubt. And then you have a lot of narcissistic kind of untalented people who just keep being prolific and spew garbage into the ether. So I don't know where the right configuration is. I think it should be focus more on like the talent and the actual product more than how it's doing numbers wise, or what kind of attention you're getting from it.
Okay.
I'm more for niche. Like, I think people should be more into niche things and stop trying to invite as many people as possible to your whatever your art is. Yeah.
And another question, what made you want to become a filmmaker?
I don't know. I remember the two first things that I wanted to be was either I wanted to work in a circus or I wanted to join the mafia. That was like me at like 11 or something. Those were the two things that I was excited about. And I guess there's a way to kind of be in those worlds through cinema. My older brother worked at a video store, and just he had a huge appetite for film, and I think I just by osmosis got really interested in film in my teenage years, and then started understanding what what a director is, I think, in my late teens. Yeah, I think like as soon as I saw like David Lynch's stuff, him in particular was like hugely fascinating to me, and still is. I can't like tell you exactly why I wanted to be a filmmaker, but I guess it's like to perpetuate the kind of magic that I felt when I was like introduced to the world of cinema.
What do you want to achieve with Sick with Myself?
I mean, I want the movie to be seen and discussed, and I want people to hopefully have a cathartic experience where we can all laugh at what it is to be a modern human, what it is to crave attention or status. Hopefully it's relatable, even though the movie goes really far. It's like the key elements are inspired by, I think, what we all can relate to. The desire to be seen, to have people sympathize with you, to care about you. I mean, these are deeply human desires. And it is, as grotesquely as it is, it's a comedy, and I want people to just have a good time and laugh about it.
And why did you do a comedy? Because the topic that you're talking about is a very serious one. I mean, you could have done a regular drama as well.
Yeah, I mean, I can't help but do comedies. I think it's just not possible for me to do something that's devoid of comedy. It almost, if I would try to make something that's completely self-serious, then I think that would just read as a comedy too. And I think it's just good therapy for me to find ways to laugh, you know, because I've had some of these dumb thoughts and desires that Signa, the main character, has in the movie, and I'm like, I see myself objectively, I'm like, that's so dumb, that's so silly of you. And that way, like, comedy is a form of therapy. We can laugh at ourselves and our, you know, kind of how we all fumble and strive with life. And I think comedy just helps me get through a day.
You already mentioned it, that this craving for to be seen and to be acknowledged is something that we all have. So would you say that your film does it have a universal topic, or is it something that is singular to Norway in a way? Because you're talking about a Norwegian society.
Yeah. Well, I think what it is a society that's taking care of all the base layer of basic needs. So if you're preoccupied with just getting food on the table and you're not sure how to survive a day and you don't have shelter, I don't think attention or, you know, narcissism is so high up on your mind. I think a society that's like taking care of all that gives room for self-reflection and has like more existential needs, that's when that kicks into gear. That's when you start comparing yourself and then maybe wanting to feel self-fulfilled. And that's a difficult question. What does that mean to be fully realized as a human? And I think that success is important for an affluent society. If it's, you know, in the US or in anywhere in like Western Europe or, you know, in Asia, like, it doesn't really matter where. If it's just like, if you're leading a life where you can have existential thoughts, I think success and self-actualization are very complex and difficult phenomenons to deal with. And I think how we measure success has become kind of messy, and numbers and views and you know, objective measurements have become important to people. So I think this is just, I think this is a universal story in so many ways. And it's playing film festivals from, it just played in Melbourne and Israel. I just had a screening in LA. We were in Cannes. It seems that people get it all over those places, especially here in LA. Everyone felt like so targeted, like, is this making fun of me? It's like the capital of narcissism. So it's not specifically Norwegian at all. I just think that Norway is an affluent society where people do have existential thoughts.
And if you were to shoot this film in the US, would it have been any different?
I mean, it would be in English. I guess one aspect that is kind of funny for it being a Norwegian story is that we do have a culture around being a little bit more humble, and the tall poppy syndrome of not trying to stick out is important to Norwegian culture. So what she does is a bigger atrocity in Norway than it would be in, say, Los Angeles. I mean, this is kind of like, she's more normal here in LA than she is in Norway. In that sense, it's more of an extreme Norwegian story.
You mentioned that success shouldn't just be numbers or something that can be measured in any way. And how would you define for yourself success? When would you consider your film that you made to be successful?
I think when I'm doing like a Q&A with a German journalist, I know that I've made it. No, for me, a big element has been if I'm happy with what I do, if I'm actually, that I think that whatever I had made, I'm happy with it. I think it's good. I feel like that's such a difficult thing to achieve. And I feel like I'm at least getting a lot closer to it than I used to be. So I feel like that's successful. Of course, the more people that see it and that praise you, and that is, I guess, some objective measurements too. But if people like something that I don't like that I've made, then that feels fake to me. It doesn't feel like real success. I think it's the first thing that has to happen is that I enjoy and appreciate my own work. And then everything that happens on top is a bonus.
So how about a film prize? Would you take that as a sign to be successful?
I mean, when I got the call that said it was going to play Cannes, that was a huge moment for me. And it did feel like that I was worried that maybe it's just because I like it, does that have any value outside in the world, and then getting the invitation to go to Cannes with the movie felt like, okay, then I guess it has some sort of objective quality to it, and I'm not like completely wrong. So yeah, that does feel good. I felt so happy with that, and I'm not immune to praise and prices, and all that will have an effect. But I'm trying to stay, conscious and mindful of not letting anything go to my head. I think I got to keep working hard and try to make even better art, even if it's just for my own sake, that I want to feel like I'm achieving greater, bigger things.
Could you tell us a bit about the casting process of the film? What were you looking for while casting your main character?
I thought it was going to be really difficult to cast the lead role because it's extremely demanding in terms of just the physicality of it all. It's a lead character who's in every scene. She's very she's kind of like exhausting to be around. She's a lot. She has a big personality. And I needed someone who could pull off all of her horrible ways of being dramatically, but also getting an audience to sort of like her in a way. Like she had to have some sort of sympathetic traits, and then on top of that, needing comedic timing and understanding the comedy of it all. And then on top of that, being able to pull off, being in prosthetics and the makeup chair for 5 to 7 hours before going on set every day. And it was such a demanding role that I was fearful that I wasn't going to find that person. But then Christina, who plays the lead, when she showed up, it just all made sense. And she became the character, and the character became her, and she completely got and was such a trooper. And it's, almost hard to imagine now in retrospect how she did it. It was such a demanding task, and she really nailed it.
Do you ever feel sick of yourself?
Constantly. Right now I am. Yeah. It's I almost wish that I could just hide behind the work and then not do interviews or anything. It is I always regret it. It's this shameful feeling of putting yourself on camera, but then I do it. But then I have a small part in the movie. It's a complicated relationship and with myself. And yes, I definitely do feel sick of myself on a daily basis.
Okay. What are your next projects? I mean, you just said that you live in the US. What are you doing there?
I'm actually starting prep on a new feature in next week. So it's a new feature film that I'm doing out here, or we're shooting in Toronto actually, but the story takes place in the US. So it'll be my first American feature.